allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Blair?
Here.
Rutland?
Here.
DePalma?
He's walking in right now.
I'm trying to turn on.
Say here.
Here.
Marshall?
Here.
Thurman? Here. Unruh?
Here.
Rumble?
Here. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Second. Steve. Motion is approved as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. That brings us right into the public hearing for truth and taxation. So we need a motion to open that hearing.
I'll make the motion to open it.
Thank you.
I'll support.
Thank you, Dana. All right, is anybody here to talk about the truth and taxation? Oh, yeah, sorry. We need to vote on that motion. Yes. Missed that part.
Thurman?
Thank you.
Yes. Unruh?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Rutland?
Yes.
DePalma?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Rumble?
Yes. All right, anybody here to talk about truth and taxation?
Hi, my name is Jay Taylor. I understand from the posting in the paper that the proposed millage for next year goes up about $0.5 Is that right, in total, for the total operating for the township?
That would be the fire millage,
The fire millage being the big driver of the change, right?
the only driver of the change.
Okay. Are we going to hear tonight what the basis is for that? That's fine. I just stated. Did you hear anything about why that's being increased?
That was at the previous meeting when we discussed the police budget. It was fully discussed. The fire budget, we had a joint meeting with the village, and it was fully discussed at that meeting.
It's also online.
And it's also online.
Okay, and that meeting was what date?
Chief, do you remember the date?
Look it up.
It was August 31st. I was gonna say it's
August,
August
yeah,
31st.
August,
Yep.
August 31st. That was
August
done.
31st. So I missed it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
It should be on the OTV.
Archives as well. Right. Anybody else here for that? Okay, can we get a motion to close the public hearing? Thank you, Dana.
Support.
Thank you, Rob. Now we need to take a roll call on that, please.
Unruh?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Rutland?
Yes.
DePalma?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Thurman? Yes. Rumble?
Yes. Citizens' comments on any agenda items? Okay. Not seeing any. Bring us right into our new business. And the first item of business is the ZBA appointment. The zoning board of appeals has been without an second alternate member since Mr. DeWitt retired and no longer wanted to be on the board at the end of his last term. So we do need to name a replacement. I was contacted by Jody Hall, who is the chair of the ZBA, that she had somebody in mind that she would like me to interview, and I interviewed Pete last week, and he is interested in serving that position. So you're looking at a motion to appoint Pete Mena as an alternate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals, with his term beginning today and ending September 30th of 24. This is their 3-year appointments.
So moved. Is Pete here today?
Pete is right here.
I am. I do have a question, and this came up, I think, I'm not sure if it was ZBA a couple years ago. Were there any residents that were?
He is a resident.
Oh, okay, because his address says Oxford, so.
He's Oxford mailing at Brandon.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm
Well, welcome to the community.
Thank you. I'm not sure what between Sashbawn and Baldwin, so
Oh, okay.
I am on the west side of Baldwin.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Pete, do you have anything you'd like to say before we go?
I think the trustees all have my resume. I think the supervisor provided that. I don't really have anything to add to that. I see this as a wonderful community service opportunity and ask you to approve this recommendation.
Thanks, Pete. Greg?
Jason, I'd like to speak on behalf of Pete.
Okay.
I've known Peter through the prosecutor's office for quite a few years. had several cases with him, and I couldn't recommend a better person for that job than him. He's also been involved in our corporate council for quite some time, so we've got a lot of contact. He's more than qualified.
Thank you. All right, we do have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call on that one?
Claire,
Yes.
Bratton,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Thurman,
Yes.
Conrad,
Yes.
Rumble.
Yes. Motion carries. That brings us into the police village, police budget. So I do have the proposed budget in front of you. I did not change any numbers from last year, except for the tax collection number that was given to me by the assessing office. So that number was changed. Everything else is the same as last year, number-wise. And then if you go into the expenditures on the next page, the only thing to point out here is the $790,000 you see on the activity there. That is only through June. The police billing is about 2 months behind, a little more than 2 months. So that is only through June. And there will be some extras in there as well. On the activity portion, just pointing that out. And then if you look at the one thing on the first page, on the collections, we did have, if you notice, about $150,000 in COVID money that came in over the last 2 years. And that money will not be coming in anymore. There is no expectation to receive any more of those funds. So that number inflated the previous numbers with those amounts that came in. So I am, for my estimations here, I'm predicting to have about a $90,000 carry forward. It's a little bit higher than what the proposed budget predicted, but after running some numbers and that's what I came up with, about 90,000.
Why does it say 36.5 or 91?
It's, if you add this number to this, it's 90,000.
He's talking for the
I'm talking about the
21.
activity.
He's talking about current.
I'm talking about current.
Oh, you're talking about current. Oh.
Yep, so
Yeah.
I'm predicting that to be 90,000.
Yeah, which is close to the estimate.
And then, with that as well, now with that part gone through, the only other part is the proposed budget. If you notice, the only increase there is to the contracted services. Having talked to the police department a few times prior to today, they were estimating about 3 to 5%. I went with 4% for that number, but I did receive a letter today that actually said they're expecting that number to be 5.3%. So the number you're seeing on here only reflects a 4% increase. So that'll actually go up another about $100,000 roughly if the 5.3 were to pass. And then the only other numbers that changed, if you go down to renovations and facility improvements, there's $15,000 for renovations and $35,000 for improvements. The renovations that have been needed for years are in relation to the locker room situation over there. They don't even have actual lockers. They have storage cabinets with locks on them. So those need to be replaced. The flooring was not redone in there, and they also do not have anywhere for a female deputy to change. So they also need to address that. So I budgeted money for that. And then the $35,000 is they have a significant issue with the boiler over there. It needs to be decommissioned and pulled out, and they need to put heating and cooling in there. So that is the $35,000 in there that I'm recommending in the new budget or proposing. And then if you notice, the rental for the substation parking lot went up $500. That is pursuant to the contract that we signed earlier this year with Mr. Emerson. So that's why that one went up. So those are the only increases. Keeping this budget where it is at only has a fund balance of $37,000 roughly at the end of this year. And then that number, if you carry forward to the next year, if we did lower it next year to 3.5, that would actually give us a deficit of 25,000 next year, and that's at 4%. If we actually use the 5.3%, that deficit increases to 51,100 roughly. So my recommendation is to keep the police budget, or police millage where it is this year, and then we can address it next year as needed. So with that said, I will make the motion, I'm gonna make the motion to recommend the proposed police budget for approval at the 2022 budget appropriation meeting, which is typically held in November. On a side note, not part of the motion though. So I will make that motion. Support. Thank you, Bob. Okay, Greg, is there anything you wanted to say before we get into this?
Sure. You're talking about the building. Obviously, I think we've been in that building since, I want to say 96, 97, somewhere around there. And it's grown. Our female officers have been on the increase in the profession over the last amount of years. We have had a couple of female officers come up to the building. We do not have a separate locker room for them. We had to put a locker in the bathroom, and so that there was only one bathroom being used. That's been an issue. There has never been regular lockers in there. And if I showed you the back of one of our patrol cars and the amount of gear that we have to carry in and out every day, it is off the charts. And we have, and I was in that building when we first moved in there, and they are the same lockers, if not very similar and just replaced. And they're storage cabinets with two doors with a lock on them. That no longer gets us through. I mean, there is not enough room in those lockers to put our gear, so we're often piling stuff on the top of them. Those need to be replaced. The other issue, and it's been an issue for a long time, is not having central air in that building. We have 4 or 5 individual air conditioners that keeps the building from even being a secure building. Anybody could push out one of those air conditioners, have access to our building. That building's not manned 24 hours a day. Guys, if there's past business hours, guys are on the street. That's been an issue. That's something we have to take care of. And that boiler system, we continue to have issues with. It requires a state inspection every year. If that state inspection is not done at a certain time, there's a fine involved. So the boilers become an issue.
And there was another issue with that this year.
Yes, just recently, yeah. And then, talking about the millage rate, I agreed on a 3.6 a year or two ago, and I was balking at even a 3.6. I'm totally against going down to a 3.5. At some point down the road, our call volume's been up around between 7,000 and 8,000 calls a year, with nine deputies on the street. That is an extremely high call volume for the size of our township. At some point down the road, not this year, if I was to add a body, we need those funds to be able to cover that. And if we ever add somebody, I'd like to add an afternoon car at some point in the future. I know, Kathy, you're kind of you spoke up the last time about cutting the millage down. The fire department millage was voted in to raise that millage, and I don't feel like the sheriff department should have to lower our millage to substitute that whatsoever. We have an extremely high call volume, and I've got to have the manpower to handle that call volume. I don't want to go down to be scraping it. If we ever need to make some type of an addition, not be able to do that because the funds aren't there.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So, Lieutenant, how long, I'm sorry, Lieutenant.
Yes.
How long has that boiler been such a problem? And I hear that when I hear, and I've driven by and I go, God, they got air who owns the building? We own the building. I wasn't here for the previous contract negotiation. So, I don't know so we own the building and we've got, that kind of makes me upset because I know what you bring into the police station. There's property.
Oh, lots of them.
You guys have stuff in there. You have evidence in there.
Yes.
And most importantly, they have people's information in there.
Correct.
And we have this problem. So has this been going on forever?
Not so much with the boiler. I mean, the substation back when, we used to be in part of this building years ago. When I first went to the road, we were in this building. And at some point, the township moved us into that building. At the time, it was large enough and it took care of the needs we had then. But that was back in 1996, 97. And we have been in that building ever since. And with the growth and just the fact of the age of that building, we've done a lot of repairs to that building, don't get me wrong. But it's never been designed as a police substation. The locker room's too small. There's no air in that locker room, there never has been. And we've made do with the office space we have, but, you know, realistically, the building is not, it's designed to be a substation, and that's where our problems come. And like I said, if we get a female officer, and I actually thought I was gonna get one at this last bump, which takes place next Saturday. I thought I was gonna end up with a female officer up here, and at that point, I didn't know what I was even gonna do. Like, where do we put her? Just because of the size of it, I can't put her in the regular locker room with all the men. The boiler has been an issue. They put Band-Aids on it, and it's kept going. The problem is that boiler is ancient, it's been there a long time. And at some point, that boiler is gonna fail. It actually has failed, it failed a couple winters ago. So, we gotta do something with it. And
So my other question is, this board, the previous board approved the police contract, right? And it goes past of this current
It
work.
expired December 31st.
Of this year?
It was a 3-year contract.
3-year contract? Okay. All right.
Part of the issue right now too is our deputies union, we have two unions in the department. The deputies union is in negotiations right now, and the command officers association is also in negotiations. We have been known to go without contracts for some time, especially if it happens to go to arbitration. I talked to Gay up here, who runs all of our numbers down there. Because of the new county administration, when I say that, I mean David Coulter and that group, they are expecting changes to come forward. And that's why they sent the letter out to all of our townships. I think Jason received it today, that they are predicting anywhere from a 3 to 5% increase.
It says to expect 5.4.
To expect, yeah. And now the department is really hoping that it'll stay around 3, but they have no idea. We don't know how long that we'll be up without a contract to even be able to solidify those numbers.
So if we contracted, I assume, since I've never been part of the contract negotiation, and then you got the deputies.
It's not a
union-
negotiation, it's between the police and the officers.
What's that?
Or it's between the county and the officers.
I understand that, but also, when you have the county negotiating price with you, and then we've got a supplement if you guys get a pay raise, are we representing, since I'm a representative of the taxpayers, do one of us get to go and be sit at the negotiation table?
I've been on the negotiating team with the county for the command officers union a couple of times. It's an interesting process. I've always said I don't know why you call it negotiations, because there's not a lot of that.
Do you know, Lieutenant, do we get the same rate as any other township?
Well, I believe so, because every township is paying the same amount per deputy, per command officer,
That's
per
my
detective. Those are across the board, yes.
But if we negotiate a price, and the price of the deputy goes up, the contract is, how does that work?
We don't really negotiate.
They send us the contract.
And we say yes or no.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
We don't
I
get
like
to do
that.
that.
I don't like that.
Yeah, that's how they've done it.
I have a question. You said that you originally in this location, and you guys moved into that one. When you guys transferred to that facility, how many
Sir.
officers did you have at the time?
Sir, you don't need to ask questions.
Oh, sorry.
I will answer those after.
I'll ask you a question. That was a question that I had.
Yeah.
How many officers, how many depths did you go up
I can tell
from
you,
the time you were here to?
there, actually, over the years, I want to say back in 2008 or 2009, there were a couple positions cut. When I started over there, I believe we had 2 on each shift. Matter of fact, we did have 2 on each shift
And
because
don't give me the numbers presently, I
Yeah.
don't think that's.
it was 2 on each shift, 2 on days, 2 on noons, 2 on midnights. We did have a 7 to 3 car from 7 at night till 3 in the morning, and there was 1 sergeant and 1 detective. So there was a big change from then to now. Maybe because of our call volume went on such an increase. Yes.
A lot of it, back in 2008, when we had the recession, a lot of the changes occurred at that point in time. And we did cut back in positions, but we brought back those positions, all except for the Deputy 1, which was the clerical at the substation. So, and that position we filled with a non-police.
Basically a civilian.
We have a civilian in there, so,
Yeah.
so that's the only change that has stayed in place that we made because of the recession.
I just wanted to say, I'm in support of staying at the 3.6 to help make those improvements to the building that need to be done to keep it secure, to get a locker room for a female officer. I also feel it's good to stay at the 3.6 until we find out what the contract's going to be for the next 3 years. But then looking at it, but still leaving enough if we need to add an officer, I would still want to look at it next year to see if we could maybe drop it, not a lot, but a little bit, but still leave enough for maybe another officer, because if you look at it, what the projected is, our fund balance starts to get up to be pretty high compared to the 50% that we try to reach. So what I'm saying is I agree with this year, so we don't go negative of our revenues versus our expenditures. So we can do that extra stuff, see what the contract comes in at, see what, if another officer did come aboard, and then see where fund balance is at. So I wouldn't mind revisiting it next year based on all that.
And even in reference to the building, I mean, there was a time last year, even the year before, we even started looking at possibility of other buildings, and there just are no other buildings in this township to put us. And, there's questions about, it's been that questions for myself and Dave as far as moving the fire department and the substation out of the village. In some ways, yes, that would be nice because of, not being able to get through the traffic and the kids and stuff at school when we're going lights and sirens. But at the other point, there's some nice things about being in the village, because everybody knows where we're at, around the corner, so. But that building is really, it's run its course in a lot of ways.
Okay. Everyone knows I would like to see the millage rate go down a little bit, but with the amount of increase, I don't think we can this year. And just FYI, you have the contracted services amount and the liaison wages amount. So what I have did in the past, I took the total amount for contracted services, and then I subtracted out half of the liaison costs, because that's the part we get reimbursed, and that's just so the board members know what we're paying outside of the one half of the liaison.
Yeah.
But when the bookkeeper does the bookkeeping, she puts all of that into the contracted services, so you're not going to see that expenditure in that line. So that's why it doesn't show up as an expenditure on your budget reports. It's included in the contracted wages. But when Jason did his math, he increased both, so 4%, so that works out. And if it's going to be even more than 4%, then I don't think we're at the right place to drop it down to 3.5. But I did have a question, and those, going back to the recession, we were trying to get by on spending as little as possible, and that's probably where all those AC units came from, because we looked into putting air conditioning into the building, and there's no duct work. So that's part of the expenditure, is you got to get the ducts in there, and if you do a forced air furnace, I don't know if that's what you're looking at, that you need the duct work for that too. So it's a sizable expenditure. And
it is. I had gotten 3 estimates for that, and literally the estimates involve the ductwork in that building. Because like I said, Captain, there is no ductwork.
Right.
Yeah, there'd be a drop down.
It would, yeah.
But, the fire chief can attest to where we were back in 2008. We were like,
Oh, no question.
there's no money coming in. What do we cut, and where's the bottom? When's it going to end, so that we can start building up? And luckily it has, and we're over, like Dana said, we're over our 50% carry forward amount. So we do have some extra money there, which is a good thing.
Well, that's the next thing I just thought of is, I know trying to find people to do stuff, do we want to look at trying to get this scheduled sooner than later, just because I know it's been hard to find plumbers, electricians, all that stuff.
We have narrowed it down to one person.
Okay.
That was several months ago, and we had actually talked, me and Jason, about waiting until possibly next spring.
I told him I didn't have the money to it for the next.
He did. He did. We decided to put it off.
Okay, I'm just thinking, bring it up. Sorry, Kathy, I didn't mean to.
That's okay. So I just did have one more question for probably Jason. For the building renovations and facility improvements, you've got $5,000 in those lines for 2023 and 2024. Do we have more projects planned or?
Nothing planned currently, just future, but there is more stuff that is wanted to be done. But no specific plans, no.
Okay.
Because I want to think to the last meeting, when the school superintendent came in. I've said it for a long time, that school liaison position is one of the most important positions we have at that substation. Not only because of the camaraderie stuff that officer has in the school, and I'll say probably even more so from the high school, I'm talking the middle school and the elementary schools, is huge. And it's a big factor at the high school as well, but also because it gives me a second detective. And I mean, just today, we had some things that took us into Flint with some investigations. I can't send one detective to Flint. I mean, we were literally in one of the roughest areas of Flint today, trying to solve a case that was committed here, and I had to send both those guys because they're both detectives. When school was out, I pulled them, they went up and did what they had to do. So that position is huge for us. It's really an important position.
It looks like we have a new liaison officer, and is he a new officer to our department as well?
Well, he's fairly new. He is a retired Hazel Park officer. He retired young. He's been with our department now for about 4, maybe 5 years. Jason Pence is his name. He was the liaison officer with the Hazel Park schools, which is a whole different animal compared to what we're dealing with up here. Very busy. I couldn't have found a better guy for that position. The officer that I had in there for a while, he filled the position, but that position's not for everybody. I mean, you kind of get away from police work in a lot of ways. It's for some guys and some guys it's not. And after a year and a half, he has to come out. And I asked, Jason happened to land here at our bump, and I asked him if he was interested, and he took it. And he's probably one of our most experienced guys as far as that. And he's a retired detective in Hazel Park.
I've
So
received a lot of good feedback on him too.
He's a good guy.
All of them in the school really
Yeah.
loves him as
Yeah.
a teaching person. So.
Yeah.
You know, Greg, I know it's hard to get you guys here in the evening, but it would be nice to meet some of these new guys if we could sometime.
It is hard to do. I mean, like right now, if I turn my radio on, I've got 2 guys in the township right now. I've said it a lot of times in front of you guys. A lot of our calls today require both of them to be there. The times of
Sure.
one officer going on a call are
Maybe
almost
if they can
obsolete.
just even stop in the office sometime during the day, when they're here at the substation. Just
And the other thing, most of
take their time just to say hi,
But most of the new guys end up on afternoon shift. And our busiest times is from 3 to 7.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not that they can't, but it's hard because, I mean, you guys are getting ready to close up shop and we're running calls, so.
That's a cowboy shift.
But I will try to take that.
That is, right?
Just so we recognize them.
Yeah, because I do have a lot of you guys, no question.
Quick question.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, is Taylor still on staff here?
Yes, he's on afternoons. Mike, I tell you, I wish I had 9 more just like him. I mean, Mike is a retired Waterford officer. Me and Mike actually graduated from Brandon together. He hired him right after I did with Waterford. He is a seasoned veteran that still likes arresting bad guys. He doesn't go in the other directions. I mean, he's full bore all the time. And I'm telling you, that guy is as solid as they get. And I was able to keep him that bump on afternoons.
What's his last name?
Taylor, Mike Taylor. Yeah, great guy. Yeah, really good. So my afternoon shift, he's kind of my most senior guy on afternoons as far as experience, for sure.
Yeah, he came out and rescued me, not that I remember it.
He did. That is true, he did. That is the one that was there.
There's a story there.
There is.
Better not ask him.
Yeah.
Public meeting.
So, yeah, but yes. Yeah. All right, thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything on that? Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call on that, please?
Crawford.
Yes.
McCollum.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes.
Unruh.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
budget. So the fire operating increase from 3.4 to 3.9, everything else will remain the same as last year. So the suggested motion is to approve the 2021 millage rates as presented. And
Support. I'll make the motion. Oh, I thought that was a motion, I'm
I was
sorry.
just reading it, but
Oh.
I will make it. All right, any questions on the L 4029? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
DePalma,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Thurman,
Yes.
Unruh,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Broughton,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes. Motion carries. That brings us back to citizens' comments on anything. If anybody would like to make a comment. Okay. Okay.
I don't, that's the question of the question, I guess.
You can, if you have a question, you can ask it afterwards. It's not for, it's just for comments, it's not for questions.
Okay. Question.
Yep.
But if he
You can- I
went
mean,
up
you can
there
ask it,
and
but
asked
nobody can
it,
answer it right now.
then somebody might answer it after the meeting.
Yes. Go, you can ask your question, but.
Or in board comments, we can
Yeah,
always
yeah.
answer
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, still, I'm learning, I don't know how this goes.
Yep.
How can we, I thought it was supposed to be approved by the residents, the villages.
It was.
How can,
Yes. The
What-
previous
what-
village of 4.25 was approved by the voters. And then we
From
lowered
3.4
it.
to, from
We
3.4
lowered
to
4.25, and now it's down to 3.6. We've lowered it.
What was the 3.4 to 3.9 for leather, 4.9 instead? There's some-
4.25 was the millage that was approved by the voters, the last millage that was approved by the voters.
That's why I'm asking, I don't know, that's the process. Then you just say it's increasing from 3.4 to 3.9?
The fire budget is increasing, the police budget is not.
I guess I'm asking about the flat budget. Doesn't that one have to be voted by the boards?
It does not.
We can explain that to you.
Yeah, I guess after, because I'm surprised to hear it's possible to increase the mileage without boards going for it.
No, there's an approved amount that it can go up to, but it doesn't need a vote
Okay, so
after
we have a
that.
range that we can
Correct.
adjust something.
It's a special assessment.
Special
It's
assessment.
5 mils, it can go up to 5 mils
Yeah, go up to
for
5.
fire operating and 5 mils for E&H.
I'll learn more, I guess. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, that brings us to board comments. Does anybody have anything? Kathy, you got anything?
No.
Okay, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Scott? Nope. Ross? Bob? No, sir. Dana?
No, I just wanted to maybe try to explain, because he's probably not the only citizen with that question, and I think it might be good to kind of explain some. So fire is a special assessment, and that was voted on
Yes.
long time ago.
Yeah.
And it stays at that the most we can ever put up to for the two fires, the fire operating, fire E and H, is both 5 mils. The police, we voted on, the residents voted on 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was
Two
during the last gubernatorial.
2 years ago, the police was on the ballot, the millage, and it was voted on by the residents. And it's up to a certain amount, which was 4.25, but now actually with the
Rollback.
rollback, it's down to 4.0547 is the highest we could put the police. That was 8-year or 5-year did we do?
I think it was
18.
I think it was 8 years, so
8
for
years.
up to 8 years was on the ballot at that rate. And then during those 8 years, we can adjust it, but we cannot go higher than what the residents voted it for. So in 6 more years, there'll be a new police on the ballot, and then that's when you get a vote.
Another vote.
And it was-
Another vote.
Yeah,
Yes,
and the
okay.
way it was worded was
You
up
vote the
to a certain
Up to,
amount,
yes.
so we have some flexibility.
Yes, so we're not as high on that one, we've brought it down.
Awesome.
Hopefully that helps.